All right, Arizona Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego is pushing for even more border security after the chaos we saw under the Biden administration. It includes hiring more agents, reforming the asylum system, and expanding legal pathways for certain migrants. Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego joins us now. Senator, thanks so much for joining the program this morning. Good morning to you. I went through your proposal, a lot of great things that I think that you can get Republicans to agree with, but there's some things that it may be some pushback. You say that there does need to be more border security. What do you think the odds of this is, this bill potentially passing?
Well, look, the goal of this is, first of all, to make sure that we have Democrats, first of all, understand what real security looks like. For far too long, we have been focusing on immigration reform, but not really emphasizing the border security. And what I saw in the race that I just ran, a race in a border state, in a very hard race that Trump won, was talking to voters, especially Latino voters. What they wanted was a secure border and some sane immigration measures. And so I think what we need to establish as Democrats is that we do value a secure border. We do value sane migration coming into this country and laws that actually deals with people that have been out of the shadows that can be calibrated to the situation at hand. So, for example, what we see sometimes is the need for us to have workers, and then we should have a guest worker program that could work to actually meet our economic demands. And there are other areas. For example, we want to make Dreamers U.S. citizens, something that President Trump supports. But at the same time, we're not throwing out the big net that we have in the past where we've been demanding that 8 million people become U.S. citizens, because realistically, that's just not going to happen.
Before we talk about the pathway, let's talk about the criminals, because you addressed them in your legislation. Why are some Democrats, though, protesting at the facilities, which you've been very clear in this piece of legislation? You think there has to be penalties for those folks?
Look, and I think there has to be penalties, and it varies, right? For example, there are some people here that crossed illegally many years ago, and they should pay a fine, but they don't get to have a pathway to citizenship. They don't get to even have a green card. They would have to get a temporary visa. Now, for those criminals, or hardcore criminals, we should be extraditing them after their time is served. Now, what you're seeing people, some of my colleagues at these ICE facilities, is because right now this tells you what's happening overall with the problem of our immigration system. It is so out of whack that even now our ICE agents are grabbing people that weren't necessarily on the target list from the president or from the DOJ or from Homeland Security. Some of these people, for example, have green cards. Some of these people have been proven to have had legal reasons to stay here, but our immigration system is so messed up that we're just nabbing people that aren't necessarily the people that we want. But we should have a focus on criminals. We should have a focus on hardcore criminals, or just people that have engaged in any kind of criminal life, gang activity, and they should be deported with due process.
Senator, I hear you, and sometimes that happens. Being a part of law enforcement myself, we detain people all the time, and then we release them. But just judging by what ICE told us, 70% of the people there are convicted criminals or are awaiting trial at that facility that they're protesting it. So what is your message as someone that's a moderate, that has gotten bipartisan support? What is your message for your party? Is that the right way to go?
Look, I think it's always good for the country if we stand for due process, but we shouldn't be here standing in the way of the deportation of criminals. But the best way for us to assure that that's happened is let's make sure everyone gets their day in court. It can even be as fast as possible. By the way, one of the reasons why I put this in this bill is that we actually increase the amount of immigration judges. Not only that, but we create a reserve force so that way we can call up more judges, more security, whether it's border security or other type of enforcement security, when we have these surges. So that way you can have both due process and deportations in a fast way, or else you're going to have the kind of chaos and very costly chaos that you see right now.
Senator, we definitely need more judges. I appreciate you coming on Fox and Friends. I hope you'll come back. I'm going to be following this legislation, sir. Thank you.
Please, thank you. Have me back.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.